is Tuesday night. Brian Kenny back here now with, again, our pundit roundtable. John Morosi, Henry Schulman, who covers the Giants, and Nate Bukaty, who covers the Kansas City Royals. Let's talk bullpen first, and this is a collision of all-time great bullpens. Is there an edge to speak of here, John?
I would say the Royals to start out with, but certainly this layoff they've had, as much talk as there's been about maybe the hitters are going to be out of rhythm, I think it actually helps their relievers. They went to Herrera, Davis, and Holland so much, and I also thought Jason Frazier was a little bit better in the ALCS than maybe I thought he was going to be, but the one name, Brian, I'm watching for in this series, Danny Duffy. Will he resurface at all? He said today his mechanics are in line. He's feeling healthy right now. Duffy's the guy that I think could possibly be that X factor for the Royals bullpen.
Nate, what do you think?
Well, I think that if you look at the statistics, I believe that the Giants' bullpen has got a little bit better of an ERA than the Royals' bullpen does. But when you talk about the big three, those are the guys that are going to play in games that matter or appear in games that matter. So I think they do have the edge there. And another guy is Brandon Finnegan. This kid was pitching in the College World Series this year, but he's pitched in the postseason like he's a seasoned veteran. So I think he makes a difference as well.
Well, we saw how good the bullpen was when we were here in August and the Royals swept the Giants. The Giants do have 4 guys in this bullpen who, between among them, have 8 World Series rings. There is an experience factor there. You have 3 guys, Jeremy Affeldt, Javier Lopez, Santiago Casilla, who are running streaks right now of between 15 and 17 postseason games without allowing a run. They don't quite get the notoriety that the Royals bullpen has gotten, and I think part of that is, Wade Davis has really spoken well for that bullpen. He's just been so good. He draws attention to how good that bullpen is, but the bullpen is a strength for the Giants, too.
Yeah. Nate, what about you mentioned experience, and we've seen these Royals on such a run, it doesn't seem they're affected by anything.
Right.
Is there an edge here because the Giants have been to the actual World Series before?
I've talked to a lot of the players about that. Wade Davis told me, I don't know because I've never been in this stage before, so I'll find out, I guess, in a couple of days. But, I mentioned Brandon Finnegan. This is a kid, once again, who was pitching in college in Lawrence, Kansas just a couple of months ago. He told me he doesn't think it matters. He said, look, this is about performance, this is about production, this is about heart. And he believes that this Royals team has as much heart as any team in baseball right now, so he doesn't think it's going to be a factor.
Well, I agree with that to a degree. In 2010, the Giants relievers didn't have any experience, too. The Giants team didn't have any experience. They had a lot of kids in there. There are kids who are performing well for the Giants who weren't even in the major leagues before this season. So, no, talent is going to win out over experience, but I do think that when you have the experience, you just kind of know what to expect out of yourself. You know the goosebumps. You know the feeling, after that first pitch in that first inning. But I really think that in the end, talent is going to win out.
For me, 12 players with rings in that Giants clubhouse. Mm-hmm. No players with rings in the Kansas City side. Now, and again, we might make a bit too much of experience, but as we watch that montage of 2010, 2012, you almost wonder if the opposition starts to view the Giants the way we all looked at the Yankees in the 90s and the 2000s, that this is a team that perhaps is on the verge of the D-word dynasty and that they might end up being able to be that team that wins those games late just because they know how. And I think there's maybe a certain amount of that mystique that could come into play, especially the middle 3 games at AT&T Park.
John, you start. What are your favorite storylines that you think will develop here?
I think one thing I'm looking ahead of, a little bit ahead to Game 2 with Yordano Ventura. And I think that's why, for me, Game 1's a bit more of a must-win for the Royals than maybe even the Giants, because as good as Ventura's been, I looked it up, 196 innings this year, 150 last year. He's 46 innings already more this season than last, and you wonder if maybe some of that fatigue was the reason why he came out of that start in Baltimore early. How much will he have left in the tank for Game 2? I think they really have to get a big-time effort out of Shields with good length because they may have to go to that pen a little bit earlier than they want to in Game 2.
Henry, storylines.
Mine, Joe Panik, the second baseman, the rookie. He's a real wild card in this series, no pun intended, for the wild card Giants. But this is a kid who has had some exceptional plate appearances in this postseason and some at some really opportune times. Batting ahead of the big boys, Posey, Sandoval, Pence, Belt. I think you're going to see at least 1 or 2 at-bats or plate appearances where he is going to have an impact.
Nate, what about you? Storylines.
This might be cliche because everybody's talking about the running Royals and the speed game, but I do think it's a factor again. In the 3-game series that these two teams played back in August, the Royals stole 8 bases. Now, 7 of those came in one game, and none of them came against one of those came against Buster Posey. So, will the Royals be able to make that a factor in this series? And also, I've talked to some of the Royals hitters like Eric Hosmer, who's having a great month of October. He believes he's hitting better because there are fast guys on the bases and the opposition is throwing him more fastballs. He's been hunting fastballs in October, and we see the results.
Is there something to be said about momentum? Like, why haven't we seen this series go the distance? And now when they collide, does that mean they will go the distance, or does it mean they won't go the distance here?
Well, I think it really kind of piggybacks to something Nate just said about the way the Royals lineup has really gotten into rhythm here. I look at the fact that they're going to have to take Billy Butler out of that lineup in the middle, at least Game 3, Game 4. Maybe they put him back in with Game 5 against Bumgarner. But I think having as good as their rhythm has been with this lineup right now, ever since Ned Yost made that switch, to change it even a little bit. I mean, they have made no lineup changes in basically weeks. They have not lost a game also in 23 days. So if all of a sudden they lose the ball game, there has to be some adjustments. And obviously going to San Francisco, losing that DH, I think anything that knocks the Royals out of their rhythm, I think, could certainly be a major obstacle for them.
September 21st was when Ned Yost went to this lineup. They're 14-2 since then, and you can understand why he hasn't changed it since then.
Doesn't want to change it until they make him change it in San Francisco. Henry Schulman, Nate Bukaty, John Morosi. Guys, thank you so much. Good stuff getting ready for the storylines here in the World Series.